Do you ever find yourself thinking that you could contribute to this kind of conversation? I mean, it's a worthy question with podcasts being so popular and accessible. My next guest has sound advice for the woman who wants to step in front of the mic. Vanessa Quigley hosts the Mom Force podcast, interviewing well-known women each and every week. It's so great to see you. You've been doing this for 4 years now.
Yes.
What do you love most about podcasting?
Oh my gosh, I love the conversations.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I have 4 sisters, and whenever we get together, we think we're so clever and we're funny, and we're like, we should start a podcast. You know, we weren't serious about it. But in a board meeting for Chatbooks 4 years ago, someone on our board said, you should start a podcast. We were in a conversation about how to build community around our brand.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought of our customers who are moms.
Yeah.
And all of the big and hard and heavy questions that come up with motherhood. And I'm like, we can talk about this. Like, I have some perspective.
Right.
Yeah. And so we started a podcast, and it's like one of the funnest things I do at work.
It's a natural extension. I'm not just saying this because we're friends or you're sitting here, but it's a natural extension of so many of your strengths and your gifts, that gift of gab, but also that ability to see other women and to connect on that level. For someone out there who might be saying what you and your sisters say, like, we should have a podcast. You say first that overwhelming question of how do I get started can be a hard hurdle to overcome.
Okay. Well, what I did is I went to Google, how to start a podcast. Okay.
Good place to start.
Learn to do almost anything on Google. I also had a friend who'd been podcasting for a while, and I hired her as a consultant to help me a little bit. But there's just like, there's no one right way to do it. It's just trial and error, and just got to get started if that's what you feel called to do.
For some, the technology may feel like the intimidating piece, the tools, the equipment. What do you recommend?
Well, you can go big time, or you can just use the Voice Memos app on your phone and just turn it on, record. You need to then take that recording and put it on a podcast hosting service so that it lands on all the platforms, but there are free of those too. So
it's actually one of the intriguing things about the attraction of podcasts is that the audio doesn't have to be beautifully perfect. Like, it's the raw conversation.
Yeah, and if it's good content, your listeners do not care.
People are forgiving these days, for good or for bad. How do you choose your guests, Vanessa? What's your advice there?
Well, when we first started the Mom Force podcast, it was literally my sisters. I recruited them. I'm like, I guess what? I am doing a podcast. And we had so much fun at first. But then we were like, you know what? Oh, we have this really good friend who's really good at talking about this one thing. And so we started bringing on guests, and it has essentially evolved. And now I just look for moms that I admire on social media, send them a DM or an email, and just invite them to be part of the conversation. I have not yet landed Jennifer Garner
Keep working at it,
if anyone knows Jennifer Garner, I would love an intro.
She's
my
your dream
guest.
girl?
Yeah.
Who has been a guest in the past that has wowed you or impressed you, or an interview that you look back on and think that was really fun?
You know, some of the celebrities that we've had on, I expected some maybe to be a little aloof. They've been so generous. In fact, I just interviewed Tiffany Thiessen from Saved by the Bell.
Yes, ma'am.
She was the first guest of season 5. We just launched, and she was so authentic and real. And we had this really deep conversation, a little bit about what it was like to be an actor, but about parenting and social media with her teenagers. And it was just delightful.
Did you call her Kelly?
You know what? Because it is the SAG strike.
Yes.
We could not reference her show or her characters or anything, so it was just
Tiffany and Mom Talk, which is what we want to hear from her anyway. Finally, how do you avoid the burnout? There is that, drip that has to happen as podcasts come out and conversations continue. How do you keep the energy up?
That's true. To really have a successful podcast, you just need to be regular with it. But my tip is just to have fun and be yourself. Like, there's no one right way to be a mother. There's no one right way to be an entrepreneur. There's no one right way to be a podcaster. And don't be afraid to try new things. Because when we first started the Mom Force podcast, I had this idea that I wanted these little quickie bite-sized episodes. And so I'm like, we're going to start the episode. We're going to start a 15-minute timer. And when that timer goes off, we're done.
No matter what, we're over.
But guess what? You can't really have a good conversation in 15 minutes. And so we kept getting feedback from our community saying, that's too short. Do another one.
Yeah.
And so we ditched the timer, and we've evolved through the last 4, now 5 seasons of the podcast, and there's just keep trying new things.
Well, 5 seasons later, you're onto something good. So thanks for sharing your insight and experience. The Mom Force podcast. We love it. We love you, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brooke.